November the 18th, 2021. Guys, we've heard for the last couple of years the term dark winter being applied to this winter. And I've had videos up where we talked about the National Weather Service, other people like that, even the Farmer's Almanac was saying it was going to be one of the longest and coldest winters in a long time. We are in a receding cycle of solar maximums and minimums, and we are in the grand solar minimum, and our shields are weak, and it causes more weather chaos when you're dealing with that. More volcanoes. Well, I won't go into all the detail there, but space weather is Earth's weather. And with this flooding, the article is about Vancouver Island, but it affects Canada and parts of the U.S., and a lot more people will be affected by it than they realize. Now, the flooding happened a few days ago, and if you remember, a lot of you probably saw images from some platform about boat rescues in this area of the country, and there and further up along the west coast. And it looked like, it reminded me of hurricane aftermath rescues, of people going house to house and getting people out of neighborhoods and whatever boats they could, except it was a lot colder then than it would be down here during the hurricanes. And that would be terrible for a southern boy like me, but they were, right after that happened, it started coming in, they were getting freezing weather you could see it on the National Weather Service maps. And now, yesterday, when the article come out, it said, again, cuts off Vancouver from the rail and road service. They're saying that we saw similar panic like you do pre-hurricane or pre-pandemic or whatever. We remember how there was a run on food supplies when any kind of disaster comes along. But it says food and toilet paper have been stripped from grocery store shelves across British Columbia as panic buying follows the realization Wednesday, November the 7th, that the previous day's biblical flooding means roads and rail connections with Vancouver and southwestern British Columbia could be disrupted for months. Again, you're looking at one of the images. I'll show you another. And there are now worries of imminent hunger and empty fuel stations and communities cut off from resupply by road or rail, with hundreds of people still marooned and waiting for evacuation by Canadian Forces helicopters. Some communities are without water, without sewage, power, and natural gas as winter temperatures threaten to freeze homes. And it wasn't just a biblical rain, guys. It's a biblical event in the sense that this is happening all over the world. It happened in China. It's happened in Europe. It's happened in many places, but it wasn't just normal flooding. Biblical flooding, taking this stuff out. Why? Because we are getting in that time, and we're told that we would see these events. And if you look around, you'll understand exactly why they're happening. It says both the CNN and the Canadian Pacific main lines along the Fraser River are out of service and will require heavy reconstruction of bridges and rail beds. Vancouver, the country's biggest port, check this out, guys. We're seeing it from Los Angeles all the way up to Vancouver. The country's biggest port is closed. Coal mined from the Rocky Mountains is piling up at loading terminals along the Continental Divide. There goes a lot of power for electric companies, nuclear generators, and just coal is a very important issue right now, not just here, but all across the nation and across the world. That and the national gas issues that we're seeing between Russia and Europe right now. Things are getting desperate in a lot of ways. It says the potash unit trains, which is fertilizer, are backed up at mines in Saskatchewan. The prairie grain harvest, food, which should be flowing west at peak seasonal volumes, is constrained to CN's northerly route from Edmonton to Canada's secondary Pacific port, Prince Rupert. A trickle of train movements over CP's Cross Nest subdivision indicates some traffic may be moving from an interchange with Union Pacific at Eastport, Idaho, but flooding on the U.S. side of the 49th parallel has choked off, check this out, access to alternate ports at Portland and Seattle. And this is a different image. I'm going to kind of scan down, but you can see the river going through here just like it goes through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Usually the roads and railroads are built along one of these rivers simply because it's too high and too steep anywhere else. But as I scan down this, you can see this road is washed out completely. That'll have to be rebuilt. And right here, all of this footing for this section of the railroad bridge here and on this side is pretty unstable, guys. The tracks are suspended in open air here. I don't know how long it's going to take. They're saying months. Now, let's mix a little Mother Nature with a bit of Atlas Shrugged for you guys to understand what I'm talking about. It says both CN and CP are surveying the damage to their shared parallel main lines along the Thompson and Fraser rivers. On November 16th, a CN train derailed on CP track near Yale, British Columbia, and remains immobile. So you've got a blocked line there. You got problems there. Crews continue to perform critical repair work following the mudslides and washouts that interrupted the movement of railroad traffic through British Columbia. This is coming from CN spokesman Matthew Gotterhalt. And that was on the 17th. Northbound and eastbound traffic from Vancouver, as well as inbound traffic to Vancouver from east north of Kamloops, is still impacted by the situation. Crews are working as quickly and safely as they can. And the media spokesman for CP, Salem Woodrow, said the railroad has deployed crews and equipment to the region, and CP engineering teams are working to repair the damaged rail corridor as quickly as possible where safe to do so. There's no time estimate for when the service will resume. So, as they said, their busiest port is shut down. Their ties to Seattle and Portland are blocked, and there's going to be a lot of people in trouble there. You're not going to be able to drive out or get on a train and get out of there. It's boat or, I guess, helicopter, depending on the airport situations. But food will have to be brought in. People will have to be rescued out. Guys, these are the things we're seeing. I thought it was important to bring this up because if you have not been preparing for food and water, do you realize how quickly an entire section of a nation can be shut down? And it goes for, not just British Columbia, but you think about cities that are basically one way in and out via 4 or 5 bridges and island locations along both coasts, and people that are cut off by large reservoirs that can overflow and take out interstates. How prepared are you? Things are moving very quickly, and don't let it just catch you by surprise. It's biblical in a couple of ways. They said we would have these storms and tempests and raging waves. But it also talked about the man, if he had been prepared and knew when the thief was coming, would not have allowed his house to be broken into. Same applies for a disaster. You don't know when it's coming, but you got to be ready. So be prepared. Guys, think about all of our friends that are up there. We've got some rough weather. Places here tonight are going to be very cold. You've got Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas in freeze warnings. Some areas just north of there. And went from a beautiful day here yesterday, perfect 77 degrees, fall weather, and it was about 60s till early this morning. We started getting some rain, and now it is, as I look, 51 degrees outside at 4:25 p.m., and we're looking at freezing temperatures here, but hard freeze warnings again. parts of Texas and Louisiana, Arkansas, and I think sections of Oklahoma. Check your local area for your freeze warnings and prepare accordingly with your pets, plants, things like that. Antifreeze. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.